We were one of a very small handful of network infrastructure providers and distributed ledger technologies at Sibos. And we were getting a lot of interest.
Rob, welcome back. I hear that you've been traveling around the world. Where are you calling from today?
Oh, I'm back at home in Sydney. So, we went to Sibos in Frankfurt a couple of weeks ago with the Hedera team. And I took the opportunity to work from my place in Italy. So, back in Sydney now, though.
Your happy place. But yeah, I want to get into Sibos a little bit. It looked like you were talking up there on the stage. I'm sure you made plenty of good connections. I'm sure there was plenty of really good conversations there. Can you give us a recap?
Yeah, well, it's a funny story. I'll come to that in a second. But so Sibos is, for those who don't know, is a kind of an annual, a massive annual conference that is hosted by and run by Swift, with participation from the world's banks. So it's very banky. It's very traditional finance. In the past, it's been discussing very dry subjects, fraud and regulation and compliance. So it's not your token 2049. There's not a single degen in sight, not a declared one anyway. However, the change in global regulatory posture towards stablecoins via the Genius Act and via MiCA in Europe and the other frameworks that are being developed around the world has kind of created a real sea change, I think, in attitude in of these conferences. And you've got central bankers and commercial bankers and payment system providers now all talking about these, the subjects around digital assets, the stable coins. I estimate probably 60% of the panels and keynotes and discussions were about how the traditional finance industry is adopting or adapting or assimilating this new form of digital money. I mean, it's incredible to hear central bankers talking about stablecoin strategies and banks as well. So that was a real shift in tone and attitude. There was this big announcement that came out of Swift around them building or prototyping their own blockchain, which is a real shift. Swift is a messaging platform. It's a financial messaging platform, and that has allowed banks for decades to ensure that there is a secure set of messages between them, which then gets kind of settled in terms of money. And Swift have worked and looked at blockchain technology in the past for reporting and for clarity, though that kind of the movement of money, rather than operating on a blockchain for the movement of value. This is different now. They're now looking at discovering and prototyping what it would take to implement a blockchain that has a value transfer. It's a long way off. The announcement suggested that there was kind of immediacy to this, but in my discussions with people I'm working with at Swift and through other announcements during the conference, it's quite apparent that they're entering a period of discovery and prototyping, which might take 2 or 3 years. We shouldn't anticipate anything very quick, but clearly, with AP Plus, we've been working with Swift under Project Acacia. They're keen to move into trials and real money trials for other aspects of things that they're looking at. So clearly, they're moving in the right direction. Whether they'll move quickly enough to be relevant in a future where value runs on blockchains and stablecoins and deposit tokens and yield-bearing money market fund-based currencies are proliferate everywhere. That remains to be seen. But it's certainly a really, really good indicator of how the traditional finance space has finally woken up to both the threat and the opportunity of what distributed ledger technology and movement of value on these new networks presents. So that was really good. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that I would think Swift brings trust to that value transfer. That is their role. And I would think that stablecoins and DLT technology would be a major disruptor for them. And if they aren't able to pivot in the right way, they could really be challenged here.
Sure. Yeah. And They are an organization that has hundreds of banking members, if not thousands. I don't know the numbers these days. In order to implement new technology, and remember, this is a change from a messaging platform to a value transfer platform. So it's actually quite a significant shift. This is a new area of business that they're seeking to move into. Will take a lot of movement from a lot of those members as well. It's the right thing for them to be doing, but I don't think it's an easy task for them to execute upon. But we'll see. It'll be very interesting to track. On the other side of things, I think the other aspect that I noticed was banks talking about real world asset tokens. So the tokenization discussion is hot. They're all clearly looking to exploit whatever edge they think they have, or the markets that they're currently working in, and moving towards a more tokenized future. So I think this year has been the first where I've seen this wholesale movement into kind of a discovery mode for some, and actually a proofs of concept and pilot mode for others on real world asset tokens. And it's it's a great place for Hedera to be, because of course we are very, very strong in terms of the cost and the security and the credibility of both those things. So we were one of a very small handful of network infrastructure providers and distributed ledger technologies at Sibos. And we were getting a lot of interest. We had dozens of meetings. There's a booth that was constantly full of people seeking to learn more. Plus the meetings we had were kind of back to back all week. So there's a very strong interest from the traditional finance industry on all those topics. And then it wasn't all about stablecoins. Obviously, AI was a very hot topic as well. But there was a very obvious shift from generative AI discussions in previous years to agentic AI. So, how do agents support business operations, movement of value, et cetera, et cetera. So, agentic commerce is this kind of evolution of that discussion. Obviously, very early days from a bank perspective to understand what that means in terms of the impact of their business, but it's a discussion that is actually being had in the open right now.
Is there anything in particular when it comes to some of those agentic AI conversations that really stood out to you?
Things like routing of payments, automatically, management of liquidity, triggering compliance actions on detection. Those sorts of things where agents can intervene quickly or can operate in a predetermined way based on their inference of context. So that's the sort of things that they'll be looked at within the banking context.
We've talked about this before, Rob, the difference a year can make. I mean, the regulatory landscape has completely shifted. And do you think that puts Hedera in a better place, considering we have been so focused on enterprise, where a lot of the enterprises were reluctant in the past? It seems like they're opening up to that now.
Yeah, well, enterprise more generally takes a while to, think its way into, a more mature strategic focus on emerging tech. And for me, it was very apparent that the time has come, if not already, certainly this year, where that is very, very real. Strategic implications and takeaways that I personally took away from the conference are that we're at that point of bridging between the legacy systems and innovation. It's no longer innovation for innovation's sake. It's actually now, how do we move from those very old systems? I mean, some of these banks are operating antique systems. And so it's hard, right? It's hard. They're not even in the cloud, right? So they're on-prem, old school technology, and moving away from that is difficult. But sometimes with the right investment and the right intent, it's an opportunity as well for these businesses to leapfrog their competitors. The Swift announcement was clearly a very strong signal, indicator that was happening as well, this bridging from legacy to the new world. Standardization. There's a lot of talk about standards, which is necessary, I think, when we're discussing the world of traditional finance and how they would interoperate. AI is seen as, like I've said, an action engine, a way of agents automating, removing cost, and being incorporated into operating models, which is very exciting. I think there's a obvious reticence to charge ahead. These are regulated industries. Their compliance is really important to banks because they get slapped with massive fines by their regulators if they step out of line. So they're very, very cautious in terms of movement, but they know the direction of travel now. So I'm not suggesting that the world of banking will transform overnight, but I think it knows the path that it needs to be on. And finally, like I said, I think they've moved beyond the experimentation phase into a move towards production. That is hard. It has many, many hurdles, but I think they're on the right track.
Well, hopefully we can see the fruits of that before too long. So, Rob, as we've mentioned on here many times in the past, you're a payments guy. And we had some payments news come out from a team that's been building in the Hedera space for a really long time, but it has a different feel to me. And that's what came out of Dropp, that they're actually going to be putting some of their systems in convenience stores, gas stations, things along those lines. Did you catch that news? And if so, what are your thoughts?
I did. It's a great... It was a great news article. Sushil and Dropp continue to bring really innovative, real-world use cases to market. In my experience, the integration of new tech with POS systems, so whenever you make a payment in store, there's some kind of device, a point-of-sale software system behind it. There's a handful of these software providers, and they're usually very difficult to integrate with because they're very guarded about their technology. So first up, kudos to Dropp for actually being able to do that. Breaking open that box, that POS box, and building their technology into it. They've got their pay by bank and pay by stablecoin options. So that means that the customer experience actually doesn't have to change if the merchant doesn't want it to, but it provides the options at the back end to actually start paying by stablecoin or the real-time, the FedNow real-time rails that Dropp has integrated with. This is within the context that card fees are rising, and that squeezes margin. I believe this is just in the US, so it's US kind of fuel stores. So paying for that with squeezed margins makes it increasingly difficult for those franchisees and merchant owners to operate. And so any reduction in cost is welcome. And the market's looking for cheaper, faster, and better alternatives to traditional card rails. Cards, if you pay by card on a traditional network, there are many interchange fees. And all of those fees are eroding the profits of those mom and pop, often merchants. So what Dropp are doing with Pinnacle, who are the POS provider, is integrating these new ways of making payments into the Pinnacle cloud-based POS system, and that will enable payments to settle instantly using both the real-time FedNow rails and Hedera's DLT. And I believe it's USDC. So if you hold USDC in your wallet, you'll be able to pay for your fuel with that. And as we know, that's super fast, super cheap. So merchants can gain up to two-thirds, I think, of lower costs on those transactions, which is significant. And instant liquidity, right? So the money arrives in their bank account immediately, not on the card network terms, which sometimes takes many days. I think it's great news. It's a great use case. It's a very interesting development that Dropp have brought to market, and I can't wait to see how it develops. I don't know Pinnacle at all, so I suspect what Pinnacle, and this is pure speculation, but Pinnacle won't only be providing POS software to fuel stores. It'll have other merchant-based a merchant-based store implementations, and maybe it focuses on particular sectors. So in terms of a growth strategy, it may well be that Dropp and Pinnacle partner together through all of those as well over time. And this is just proving out the technology for both partners to make an assessment of what happens next. But like I said, that's just speculation.
What I like about this one, Rob, is, it's that using Hedera rails to be able to buy your coffee or buy your gas or whatever it might be. And I want to try to get a list of where all these stations are so we can get HBAR out there and actually try to use it. I believe that their pay by bank actually does use an HCS transaction as well. And then, of course, HTS for the USDC. I'm planning on getting Sushil on next week. And also, I think the founder of Pinnacle as well. So I'll be able to ask some of those questions around that. But yeah, really exciting stuff on the payments front when it comes to Dropp. There's been plenty of news going on in Hedera in general. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on before we let you go?
Is there anything you'd like me to talk about? There is so much going on, so it's difficult to know where to start.
Well, we have the Saucerswap app that just dropped. I'm not sure if you were able to use that. We actually had something from YieldFX. They're using tokenized deposits, I believe, and they're going to create an exchange for FX trading. There's stuff all across the board that I'm curious about that I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on. Is there anything that you want to bring up in particular?
I'm a daily user of Saucerswap and the web app, so I'm not in the app beta test, but I've seen some screenshots and it looks super clean and very, very sharp. So I can't wait to get my hands on it. YieldFX, yeah. I mean, what we're doing is we're developing out these new protocols, these developments on DeFi, and they're coming thick and fast now, really, really rapidly, which is great to see because it catches us up with the other networks who have had these sorts of protocols available to them for a while now. But it's again, and I think I don't know specifically this one, but it's a testament to how Foundation are really focusing on retail and pushing out a lot of these new developments.
And Rob, I believe, of course, you're into payments, but I believe you're into ID as well. You've created some solutions around digital ID. And I think by the time this comes out, there's going to be some news coming out of the Hashgraph group around that and the MENA region in particular. But we'll be able to talk about that the next time you come on. We appreciate, as always, you coming on and giving us your insights. Keep fighting the good fight out there. We know that you did a great job out there at Sibos, and now you're going to be continuing on with Heat. So once again, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, and just one thing before I go, I mentioned a funny story. I literally turned up. My flight was delayed by 12 hours, and I didn't think I'd make the panel because it was first thing on the first day. So I called ahead, or I messaged ahead, and had an alternate put in, Andrew from Hashgraph. He was all mic'd up and ready, and it was like the Red Sea parting for Moses. Everything went my way. As soon as I landed, I went all the way through and literally turned up a couple of minutes before the panel was due to start. They mic'd me up. Andrew stepped down and gratefully shook my hand, and I went straight on. So yeah, that was an impressive way to start the whole conference. And I gave Andrew, huge kudos for helping me out, and he leads the Hashsphere team. So we had plenty of discussions around Hashsphere during the week as well, where I paid him back in spades. So yeah, it was a great conference. But the team is really the wider Hedera team. So all of the organizations are really firing on all cylinders at the moment. So it's really great to see.
Oh, well, Rob, you travel looking sharp because you looked great up there on the stage, and I know you did a great job representing Hedera. Thanks again for hopping on.
Thanks. See you next week.